Let me share with you 3 of my best all-time driver videos. You know, driving doesn't have to be that complicated, especially when you get some of the secrets that I'm going to share with you here. Let's go and get started. All right, now the setup can make or break your golf swing. There's one thing that every good player does, and if you want to hit the driver well, you have to do this right. Now, in the downswing, that club has to shallow out. And what I mean by this is when your hands are roughly shoulder high or chest high in the downswing, we got to have this club shaft pointing out to the golf ball. If the club shaft is steep, then we're going to have to reroute this and things get a little bit dicey. Now, if we get this club shallowed out, we also have to do something after this is very important. As we're making the downswing, when the club's what I call last parallel, or the last time the club shaft is parallel with the ground, we have to have that golf club, if this is pointing down my target line or straight toward my target, we have to have that golf club inside that target line. Now that's what's called the slot. And crazy enough, it doesn't matter if you're hitting a draw or a fade, you want that club inside the target line on both of those. If I'm playing a fade, it's inside the target line and I swing a little more left. If I'm playing a draw, it's inside the target line and I swing a little bit more to the right. So it doesn't matter any shot that you're hitting, we always have to have that club to the inside and shallow. Now, if you don't set up right, it makes it daggone near impossible to do those two things that we just talked about. If you do set up right, it's a lot easier. So let's start out with the most important part, and this would be the grip. It all kind of starts from the grip. Now, if you imagine if I take this grip and my palms of my hands are more vertical or even, heaven forbid, to the left, it's going to be very tough to get in this position. Let's start out with palms left. Now, here's the way I like to teach the grip if I'm doing it very, very simply. The palms of the hands, as they tilt more this way, that would be a weaker grip. As they go more this way, that would be a stronger grip. So if I'm setting up to this golf club, I open up my hands and I make my palms here. Then I take my grip. You can see how my right hand is more on top. My left hand is more underneath, or basically my palms are turning more this way. Now I can get into infinite detail about exactly how you should do it. That doesn't matter nearly as much as just what the palms are doing. So if I get my palms more this way to the left, that's going to automatically kick my upper body. Watch how it gets on top now. Look how my right shoulder gets kind of high and out in front. If you were to put a club on my forearms now, I've tilted these forearms to the left if I'm looking down the target line. So as I do that, look at the shoulders, look at the forearms. Right forearm gets higher than my left forearm. All this goes to the left. Well, that sets me up in a position to where I'm going to be steeper in the downswing and swinging more to the left instead of getting shallower and from the inside. Make it easy on yourself. We make golf so daggone hard, it doesn't have to be that hard. Go ahead and get your palms about what feels like 45 degrees to the right. So again, if I'm going to set up to this golf club, open up my hands and make my palms, and then I'm going to turn my body. Right shoulder now gets lower. My upper body gets more behind. My right palm feels like it's under the club. Left palm is on top. And now when I take the grip from this position, I'm much more from the inside. Now you notice this, when I do that, look at that right forearm now. That gets lower than my left forearm. I want that right forearm slightly lower if I want to make sure that I get from the inside. The second one there is you can see that my shoulders are now behind my hips. So just changing my grip, got my sternum or my shirt buttons behind my belt buckle. That's a great position to be in to now get from the inside and shallow that out. And then finally, that gets my body just a little bit more closed or to the right, the entire thing. So even my knees are going to feel like they're slightly more to the right. So change that grip. Get the palms 45 to the right. That's going to tilt your shoulders, get you from the inside. And now I feel like I'm going to slot this club in here. And again, we make it so daggone hard, it doesn't have to be that hard. Get 10 times too much to the inside. I never see anybody over shallow it. I never see anybody swing too much from the inside. Swing as far from the inside as you can. And then once you start to overdraw it, just tone it down a little bit. Feel like you play a little bit more of a fade and it'll be that nice tight draw. So here we go. Big time tilt to the right. I'm going to overdo this. Way shallow from the inside. I'm going to feel like my club touches this wall and then I just swing out to the right. If I overdraw it, heck, who cares? I'm going to be killing it when I do that. Let's go ahead and give it a whirl. There we go. Started that one to the right, drew it back. Not going to hit it a whole heck of a lot better than that. All right, pretty nice drive there. 301. Not even loosened up there a little bit, not my best club head speed, but a perfect smash, meaning I hit it really nice and solid, and it's very easy to do. So this is my brand new, just testing out this Ping G425. Pretty excited to hit some of the first shots with this. Let's talk about how you're gonna get some power. How are you gonna make the driver swing easy? You know, if you wanna hit it far, that's great, but how do we do it in an easy way? Well, one of the mistakes that I see is players have been told, and I used to feel the same thing myself, is to keep that right elbow kind of tucked in and down in the backswing. And what happens is when I tuck that elbow in the backswing, it ends up kind of cutting off my shoulder turn. So I almost used to feel like when I hit it much shorter and much more inconsistent than I do now, I'd feel like I didn't really move that elbow much in the backswing. I just kind of folded it up and then I just let it go. Felt really consistent. It felt like it was a very simple move, but I just didn't have the power and it really wasn't any more consistent. It's actually less consistent than my swing now. So I felt like I'm just gonna bend that right arm early, keep the elbow tucked in the backswing. The reason I did this is because I always heard, well, you want to have that elbow tucked in the downswing, so I figured, well, it's easier to tuck it in the backswing and just keep it there than it is to do it the other way, but that just kind of sucks away all your power. What you want to feel like is you want to feel like almost like you're reaching up and there's almost a hammer up here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that handle of the hammer way above my head. I can let my elbow fly out away from my body like Jack Nicklaus and hundreds of other players that have played on the PGA Tour that are fantastic ball strikers. Now I've got all this space and all this width, and from there, then I'm going to rotate through. And it's actually that opening up and that rotating that drives the elbow in and keeps it tucked at your side in the downswing. So we don't want to feel like we tuck it and rotate like this in the backswing and don't really make a turn. I want to get loaded up, get that hammer up here, and then rotate in the downswing. That's what's going to tuck it in there. That's going to be the best of both worlds. Now, a lot of players will tell me, Clay, I'd love to have that nice high backswing, but I'm just not flexible enough. Well, what it is we're not flexible enough if our shoulders don't rotate and our arms rotate flat. So if I feel like, again, I'm turning flat around my body, this is already very tight for me, and my shoulders haven't rotated much. That would be an incredibly short backswing, and I feel really tight in my chest, like it's almost like even cramping up here in my left pec because it's so tight. Well, that's because I've rotated the wrong way. Now notice what I'm going to do is I'm going to feel like that elbow comes off my chest, and instead of my hands going back this way, my hands are going up. At the same time, I'm just going to move my hips. Let my hips turn, and all of a sudden, I've got a lot more power. I've gotten a lot higher in my backswing, and it actually feels looser through my chest. I could actually hold this position here for quite a while without wearing out. That's what gives you a lot of good power. So it's grab something off this top shelf up here like a hammer, and then from there I'm going to rotate my body. That's when the elbow is going to tuck in. You're going to be hitting it really hard when you do that. So watch this one here. I'm going to go ahead and do one the wrong way, which is fold the arm. And then on the next one, I'm going to do it the right way. So here's the wrong way, arm fold, no shoulder turn. I hit that one absolutely as solid as I could. Felt like $1,000,000, but again, it's not very consistent. Even though it felt like I was doing less, that was a weak slice. Carried at 190. Swing speed went all the way down, 20 miles an hour slower on that swing. So not only was it fools you, it feels more consistent, but in reality, it's not more consistent, and it's a whole heck of a lot weaker. Now I'm going to do that kind of arms up, shoulders rotated swing, like I'm grabbing something off that top shelf and then rotating through. Let's see how that one works. A lot more power. And again, a lot more club head speed, nice little tight draw there, straighter path or straighter ball shape than the one before. 24 miles an hour more club head speed, 311 yards, almost over 100 yards farther carry. So it's just being an athlete. If I don't rotate my body that way, I can't be athletic. Now, another misconception with this, the second piece of this, is feeling like I've lost my tee here. Need to grab my tee real quick. Got so much power, I'm blowing the tees off the hitting area. But here when we're making our downswing, we actually want to get that right shoulder coming through the shot. So when I've loaded up, I get everything turning behind me. As I go through, I'm rotating everything through. When I did that kind of lever action, it's like nothing moved. My shoulders didn't move and everything just folded up and unfolded. Again, seems simple. It just really doesn't work. Instead of that fold, unfold, where my shoulder doesn't move, I want to turn my shoulder back, grab something off the shelf, turn my shoulder through the shot, and the key here is to feel like your right shoulder's facing the target when you come on through. Let's give that a whirl. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, grab something off the shelf, rotate through. Oh, it actually thought I hit a little ball there. Must have read the club moving through. When I come through, I'm going to point my right shoulder as far as I can to the target. All right, let's try one out here. There we go. Not going to hit one a lot better than that. Nice little draw again. You look at those 3 shots, they're almost overlaying each other. There's 3 separate shots there where I had the good swing. Again, high club head speed, 370 yards, very consistent smash factor. Everything was really nice and solid. So it's about getting rid of that little lever action with the arm and letting your body rotate. That's the true secret to having power. I see these 3 common mistakes all the time. I'm going to show you some very quick, easy, simple ways to fix these right away. Start hitting your driver a lot longer and a lot more consistent. Number 1, this is a big one for distance. So many times I'll see players taking a shoulder width wide stance. And what I mean by shoulder width is the middle of their foot will kind of be to the middle of their shoulder, almost like this with the driver. That's just way too narrow. If you look at the best drivers in the world, so specifically what I would say is the best driver in the world, Rory McIlroy, over the last 10, 15 years, he's going to have a much wider stance. And what I like to have is I like to have the instep or the inside of my foot be on about the outside of my shoulder. And it doesn't have to be exact. And actually what I would do is I would test this to see what's the most powerful swing for you. I would start out with a very narrow swing. And what you're going to notice is this is way too narrow. I'd never hit my driver like this. But if I make a swing like this, I can hit it solid, but I just can't get a lot into it. It's like I'm standing on ice a little bit. I really just don't get the traction that I need. Then I would go wider and wider until you feel like you're getting the most power and the most comfort. So keep going wider and wider until eventually you get too wide and you feel like it's tougher to move through the shot. Most players are going to find, again, the instep of the foot right here should be lined up with about the outside of the shoulder for the driver. So that's a quick, easy one. It's going to help you get a whole heck of a lot more distance and make things a lot more fun. Now, number 2, and this is probably the biggest one, is getting that right arm too high. A lot of times what I'll see is players set up to the ball, their shoulders are very level, and because my right hand is on lower than my left hand, if I make my shoulders level, my right shoulder is going to kind of pop out this way. You notice if I put a club across my shoulders, it would be lined up too far to the left. And I see that vast majority of players, I almost guarantee that you're doing this exact thing right now. That right shoulder gets out. You'll also notice the inside of my right elbow gets facing toward me. So if you were to put your palm up like this, the inside, or kind of where your funny bone is, that bone that's on the inside of your forearm, when you set up with that right arm too high, all of a sudden that's pointing back toward my body here. What I want to have is almost imagine like I'm going to hit this golf ball with the inside of my forearm with my funny bone there and come from the inside. That's a big reason why players struggle so much to get the club coming from the inside. When you get that elbow out, that funny bone in, there's just no way to get from the inside. So I want to feel like I'm almost hitting with the inside of my elbow here, and you'll notice naturally what that does is that sets my body up in the right position. All good drivers of the golf ball at contact, all PGA Tour players at contact are going to have their upper body tilted away. And you see that if I tuck that elbow in, that automatically puts me in a position where I'm a little bit more tilted back. I'm behind the golf ball, and I can much, much more easily get from the inside and hit that nice draw. There we go. And you see that's much more powerful right away. So those are 2 big ones. Now another big one, huge one, is trying to hold the face square. And if you think about this, all the weight of this driver head is sitting on the outside of the shaft. So if I try to pull this club, I try to pull this grip straight toward the target, watch what happens to the club face. It opens wide open. So if you just took 2 fingers and you drug it straight toward toward the target, that would pull that driver face way open until it got lined up with the direction that you're wanting to pull. That's the physics of the way it's designed. So most players will try to hold that face too square. I bet you've had the feeling in the past that you're trying to get that driver face as square as you can through the ball, keep it square as long as you can, and just have everything moving very straight. That's a great way to hit weak drives that probably go 30 yards shorter than they should. In reality, what we want to be doing is releasing this club face. So I want the club face to be turning over through contact. Imagine it like a top spin forehand in tennis. I'm releasing that driver to try to get around the outside of the golf ball. Actually, even the straightest drivers in the world have this club face releasing pretty daggone quickly. No one has ever been measured to keep this face moving perfectly square through contact here. Every single player that's ever been measured on a lot of high-tech equipment has that face releasing, and some of the best players in the world go ahead and release that face pretty daggone aggressively. So if you want to hit it square, what you actually have to visualize here is that I get that elbow in, that gets me from the inside. And then from here, I take this face up position here, and what you'll see with the best players is as they release it through the golf ball, the face is already almost toe up and down, so the leading edge of this club is almost straight up and down, like right here in the swing. It turns over pretty daggone quickly. So I go from this elbow in position, club in the slot, and then I'm releasing that face to get the toe to turn on over. It can even be a little shut there, which you'll see with a lot of good players. And it's surprising how quickly that face is rotating through, but it's actually giving up that control, letting that thing go ahead and slap the golf ball. You're gonna hit it a lot straighter. You're actually gonna hit that draw a lot easier, and that's gonna help you to get a lot easier distance and consistency at the same time. So let's go ahead and give this a whirl. I'm gonna go ahead, get that nice wide, powerful stance, tuck my elbow in, and then from there, I am releasing that club all the way through. For me, I feel like I'm throwing it. I'm letting that right hand just turn on over like this as I'm coming through the shot, and that allows me to hit it, you know, nice and straight and long at the same time. Let's give it a whirl. There we go, had a nice draw there. Now there's one bonus piece. There's one piece that I would say is the next most important thing that almost every player does. When I watch players swing, almost all players tend to stand up out of their posture in the downswing. The hips get locked off, and then we're throwing the hands at it. That's why a lot of players don't like the feeling of releasing this club, because they feel like they're throwing their hands already. They're afraid they're gonna get inconsistent. Here's the solution to that. What you really wanna do is get much lower than what you're used to. You see, if I stand up, my hands actually move up. I want to feel like my knuckles are dragging the ground. And there's a very specific way that you do this to where you can get low to the ground and you can still release that club, just like what you're seeing with all the pros doing. And I'm going to play a preview of that video where I'll show you some of those secrets in this knuckle dragger drill that I have. I'm going to play a preview of that here in a second. All you need to do is go ahead on your screen somewhere. You're going to see this little round iCard pop up. Click that iCard. You'll be able to get instant access to that video, and I'll show you how to get these knuckles on the ground, get that club releasing out in front, stay in your posture. All that's going to tie in together to where what we talked about in today's video is going to match up with that perfectly. It's going to be like a light bulb goes off and you're like, finally I can do these moves that I'm watching the pros do. So go ahead and click that card. If you don't see the card, don't worry about that. Go ahead and click the link down below in the description and I'll show you the knuckle dragger. It's going to be a big time game changer, make you have a whole lot more fun, have a blast on the golf course. Let's go and get started right now. I got an awesome video for you. This one is what I call knuckle dragger. And this is one of the best ones, one of the big missing pieces to players that are struggling to get more lag. Now let's talk about when you lose lag, what's happening. A lot of times what's happening is as you make your downswing, if we're looking from this down the line view, what happens is my hips go toward the golf ball, they start to slide forward. My chest moves back away from this golf ball, so I'm getting farther away from the golf ball, and then all of a sudden I cast, I flip, and I don't have a lot of lag there. Well, look how far my hands are away from the ground. Also notice when I get my hands closer to the ground, so as my hands get lower, then what happens is they also go forward more. So as I want to have more lag, when you feel like your knuckles are dragging the ground, then that club is naturally going to lag back behind, and then you're going to release that out in front. When your hands are far away from the ground, well, if I had all that lag, where would I be swinging? I'd be swinging a foot over top of the golf ball. So you have to kind of flip, release that lag early to just make contact with the golf ball at all. So having those knuckles feeling like they're scraping the ground is really going to be a big key. Now another piece to this, again, when I talked about losing that posture, your hips go forward. You're gonna wanna feel like, as those hands scrape the ground, your knuckles drag the ground.